But like, I was like punching the asphalt. I was so mad. And I look up in the sky and I'm like, God, if you're real, you have to do something now. My understanding of that moment was that my family came and like gathered me. My friend was also at that house. So he said, my friend, like, you have friends and you have family and they have come to you. Right.
Like, I'm here with the people around you.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think that he does a lot of work through people. I think that's his favorite tool and his favorite instrument. He sent them to me. I didn't know it at this time, but they didn't know that I was like split off, run down the hill.
Welcome to Unreasonable Autonomy. My name is Sarah Grace. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs and innovators who refuse to settle. Here we dive deep into raw, real conversations with boundary pushers who have pursued seemingly impossible ideas and yet have achieved unreasonable results, whether that's in their faith, relationships, health, politics, yes, even business. All of those conversations are happening right here, right now. So let's buckle up because this isn't about playing it safe. Unreasonable ideas, unstoppable results. Let's go.
All right. Welcome back to the podcast. It is Sarah Grace. You guys, I am sharing a space with someone who I feel like I know a lot of secrets about, and we're going to just talk about them today. But most importantly, let me tell you why I am sitting across from the Jimmy Allen. Okay, the Jimmy Allen. Yes, you need to know that he sits 10 years long of crushing it with sales funnels. He is well connected with ClickFunnels. He's a tech guy, all the things. But here's why I think you are so impressive and why I want to start a conversation here with you. So those of you listening, whether you're on YouTube or you're listening on the podcast, Jimmy and I were at an event a couple of weeks ago in Denver. And that was really the first time I was introduced to exactly who he was, what he was like, and all of those things. And there were two things that stood out to me. Number one, you did not attend the whole event. You were a day late, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yes. So you walked in a day late, and then the event was amazing and we became friends and it was all great. And then we started Voxering and talking and things just kind of clicked, and I wanted to figure out what your world was like. And you and I were having conversations back and forth while your baby was laying with you on the recliner. True or false?
Very true. Oh yeah.
Very
I do
true.
some of my best work with my kid asleep on my chest.
Oh my word. Okay. And so these were actually the two things where I was like, I just want to be around this person because you just are completely apologetic about doing business and life your way, right? You're going to show up late. And if you miss a day, so what? You are going to soak in days 2 and soak in days 3. And if you're talking with a potential business buddy or whatever, the kid doesn't have to be out of the room. They can be asleep. You just are adaptive. And so I just was really, really blown away and impressed by your ability to just say, look, I know where I'm going. And the things that are really important to me, like networking and my kid, they're not going to get in the way. In fact, they are part of this, right? Would you say that that is part of your approach to life, or am I way off base?
You're not off base in the slightest. Everything at this point, okay, every human has 24 hours. And I know we're dabbling in cliches right now. It's like, everyone's only got 24 hours. You got to do this. And it's like, I've got so much to do. I've got so many people to help. I have a spouse. She's amazing. I have a kid. He's 1 and a few years old, and he needs a father presence. More than anything, especially in these first 5 years, he needs a father presence. But that doesn't mean that the rest of my life and my ambitions and my work and my aspirations, none of that gets put on hold. In fact, I would say now is also the most important time for me to push the lever forward or stomp on the gas pedal to make those things happen, because it's not going to get easier, especially when you have more kids on the way. And I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but we've officially told our family, and we have baby number 2 on the way now.
Bless you. Congratulations. Yeah.
Woo! Thank you. So we've got baby number 2 on the way. And it's not going to be any easier than it is right now. I might as well do everything I possibly can to make the dreams happen, make work happen, help people, help unblock, unchain other entrepreneurs, and especially their customers. Because I work with people who push transformation for other people's lives. So if you are a health practitioner, or if you are someone who helps teach people how to make more money or how to preserve your wealth or anything like that, I help those people make sure that they're as effective as they can possibly be, because they're the real heroes going out there and making change. So the long story short here, and you asking your question is no, it all has to be glued together, because I only have a fixed amount of time, but I have so much that I need to do in that amount of time.
And tell me a little bit about, I want to back up when you said, look, my kid, month and a half old, like the fact that you are even awake and like you look like a human is very impressive to me, by the way, with like a 6-week-old baby. But
oh, no. So he's 1 year and a few months.
1 year and a few months. Holy smokes.
No, if you saw me back then, you'd be like, hey, what a nap. You ever heard of one? You know,
okay.
You saw me back then for sure. And still, yeah, it was about the 4 or 5 week mark where I was like finally getting my bearings back. And you're also a mother, so you fully understand like what it's like during that first month. It's just especially for the first baby. The first baby and the first month is world shattering. Just
so different. It is just a whole different world for both mom and dad and for the job and for all the things. And you're so right. And something you said, look, he really needs a father presence and now. Right. And now, and that does not mean that my life needs to be put on hold. Okay. I would say logically that a baby puts a lot of things on hold, right?
So many things.
Yeah. And so what have you chosen to put on hold versus what are you actually putting the gas pedal on right now?
Yeah. What matters most, I would say. And then if I had to put things into buckets, there's things like I used to spend a lot of time with my friends from, I'll say back home, but like I still live in the town that I grew up in.
Yeah.
Because all my family's here and it's hard to be away from a massive, massive family that I have here. But, I used to spend weekends, weeknights, go out with friends and drink, party or hang out and just, or play video games. Like you haven't played a video game in like the longest time. So a lot of that has gone to the wayside, but I'd say got replaced with things that are way more important, things that actually matter, that'll be a part of my life 10 years down the road. So yeah, there's just, I don't want to call it maturing, I guess, but maybe that's the most correct word is I started focusing on the things that actually matter. Therefore, that's maturity. I don't know.
For sure. Right. And all of a sudden you have this human in your life that, because like a spouse can largely be independent and take care of themselves and do all those things, but you are very much in charge of the shaping of this new person in your life. Yeah. Right. And so I want to kind of highlight something that you and I were talking about before we started recording. And I was telling you, I was like, Jimmy, you can swear, but if you swear, I'm going to cut it. Right? Like I'm going to edit it just because that's the standard of the podcast, which is fine. Sure. And you were like, I have a story about swearing and how it's kind of cycled through my life. And I actually think this applies to being a dad. So like, tell us about swearing for you.
Okay. All right. You might have highlighted, sorry, I'm just thinking down that track in the conversation that we had, but to bring everyone else up, all the listeners up to speed, Sarah was like, hey, swear away. We're just going to cut it. And I was like, I don't want to swear. I don't want to, but something weird happened in the last like 2 or 3 months where it kind of started trickling back into my life. And it would be just like moments of frustration or moments of like things aren't going my way. And the gut reaction is just to like, let the F word fly. Like this is effing ridiculous. Yeah. And I'm like, why did I do that? Why do I do like, I think that's in the Bible, right? It's like, why do I sin? Why do I do the things that I don't want to do that I know that I don't want to do? And I say I don't want to do. It's like, why did that happen? So I'm trying to like go back and revisit what happened in the last 2 or 3 months. Cause the kid's a lot older than that, but maybe I did have a huge radical shift in like, in my work and like my agency specifically in the last few months. And that could possibly be it, is that like, I've actually done a good bit to forsake my sleep and to forsake my health. And I'm, by the way, listeners, this is not health advice. Don't recommend it, but just huge disclaimer, don't not sleep. So I don't know. Yeah. Just something happened in the last few months where I'm like, like short on patience, short on, and short to the point where I'm like, I'll let a frustration slip. And like, I don't want to curse because I knocked the habit and like, I was just like, always tell the truth, never curse, do the right thing all the time. And it was awesome. That doesn't mean I'm like running around doing the wrong things all the time now, but yeah.
Sure. Well, and you mentioned the Bible, right? That the Bible talks about like this tendency that we have to kind of cycle back into old things or immature things because we've talked about maturity. And I keep thinking of the imagery where the Bible teaches like that a dog goes back to its vomit. kind of thing, like ugh, kind of gross. And you're like, why do I do those things that I may perceive as harmful? But I know that's going to be the title of the podcast, right? The dog and the vomit.
Yeah. Jimmy returns to his vomit. Come catch the next episode.
It's going to fly, Jimmy. It's going to fly. I love it so much. But I want to pitch this to you because I was in the room I was consulting with a client, and they are in the relationship space. They help marriages. And my guess is if you're in the ClickFunnels space, you know who they are. So, but I'm not going to mention them.
I do.
But they talk a lot. They use a lot of swear words as part of their branding. Right? They do a lot of cursing. It is all over. And because the whole part of their branding is like, this is just words. It's just a word. And you're attaching meaning to this thing. And it's not a bad thing. Like that's a you problem, not a swear word problem. And like all those kinds of things. And so I want to throw that your way and be like, well, is cursing even bad? Like, is it bad to you? Like, why?
I agree with them.
To me.
Yeah, I agree with them. And it's the value that you place on the words. And if they're going to assign no value, then the words mean nothing. But I do assign value to it. Therefore, it means something. And
you don't want to unassign value.
Yeah, it's my opinion that like it's anger in your heart. Right. And dude, I'm not going to say like hypocritical, but it is kind of like, self-reflective for me to be like, yeah, no, it's anger in my heart is the reason why that the swear words are flying out of my mouth, but I don't want them to. And the reason I don't want them to is because they have meaning. They are reflective of impatience and anger and, anything else. And I think that if you look at what Jesus says, you won't get a direct quote of that out of Jesus's mouth, but he's basically like, hey, like you have anger in your heart. If you lust, then you've already committed adultery. Like he's like so much about what happens here in your eyes and your brain and your heart. Like that's where the meaning is. So, but I'm also, I'm an American. So like, let the words fly. That's not I don't tell people don't curse because like, do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want.
I just don't want to.
But as you raise a family, right? And as you have a marriage and these kinds of things, you're like, this is a signal for me that something's triggering, that something I am not who I want to be in this moment. And so you do assign that kind of meaning of this is a moment for me to refine. Is that correct?
Totally. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because I feel like I've done a disservice to our listeners in a way of them not understanding your background and the rooms that you are helping and serving and sitting in. And I actually have a really, really controversial question for you about those rooms that I will ask you after. So that's the hook, everybody. You've got to listen. But can you give us the 3 to 4 minute version of how did you go from Jimmy Allen to the Jimmy Allen that is completely dedicated to becoming his best self. We're both in the high ticket world in a lot of ways. And you especially, you are so devoted to just helping other people be geniuses, which I deeply respect. So what has been your journey? 3 to 4 minute version to catch everybody up.
Ooh, I'm not sure how I feel about the qualifier of 3 to 4 minutes because I don't like to talk about myself, but this is specifically one of those things where it's like, dude, how deep the rabbit hole goes or like how the coincidences or like God's timing and stuff like that. But I'll actually start with Jimmy as a teenager, just graduating high school, going to college for computer science. And my brother-in-law taps me on the shoulder, figuratively, take that as you will, and says, hey, do you want to come out to this office and come intern and learn about building websites and maybe a little bit about marketing? And I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. When are we going? He says, tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. So there was this old education platform called codeschool.com. And I went on to codeschool.com. I downloaded all of the PowerPoint slides on it. These are all programming languages, HTML, JavaScript, CSS. And that's all the front end, everything I need to know about like what makes a website visually, aesthetically pleasing or usable in the first place, right? So I went and learned that. I also learned about Ruby on Rails, which is a backend language that makes the website powered, makes things happen. And I go out to this office in Boise, Idaho for 3 weeks.
We know where this is going. Okay.
Oh yeah. And I go out there and I was on the plane and someone probably thought I was like a hacker or like I was taking over the flight controls because they see this like black screen, green text flying around and then you swap back over to like a website and there's like rectangles and like words and stuff. And I go back to the green screen and it's like all this stuff. But I was learning how to code on the flight over. And then I get in the office and I hang out there for a week and I just keep on keeping on, keep learning more. And it's about the second week or so that we're out there this guy is in sandals and cargo shorts and a tap out wrestling shirt. We'll call him Rusty for all intents and purposes. And he's like on the keyboard and he's like, like slamming on the keyboard. And he's like, okay, the email's going out in this very excited fashion. I'm like, what? Like, okay, keep in mind, I come from like just out of high school, like teachers just like taught from the book and no one was ever really excited about anything, especially in the town that I grew up in. And so this guy's super excited and he goes, I'm sending out the email. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you're just sending out an email. Like, who cares? I send emails all the time. It's not a big deal. But I, it's just like kept my head down, just like kept doing what I was trying to learn. And then it was about another hour, maybe 2 hours. He goes, okay, we just passed 40K. And I was like, what? Like 40K what?
For a high schooler?
He's like, yeah. He goes, $40,000. And I was like, that moment right there is the moment that shattered everything for me, because where I came from with pine trees and cows and pastures, you worked an entire year to hopefully earn $40,000, maybe even before taxes. Right.
Oh, wow.
And then this guy just like sends an email and makes that much money in like 2 hours on like a Tuesday. And it was crazy for anyone who historically studied, Russell Brunson back then. That was the Affiliate Evolution launch, his $7 low ticket affiliate education. And so that offer is like my initial indoctrination into like, what is internet marketing? Like, how does that even work? And like, what is a promotion? What's a campaign? What's a funnel? And yeah, so I was like mind blown, didn't really understand what was going on. And then I left from there, and by the way, my brother-in-law is Todd Dickerson for anyone else who's trying to connect the dots here. But we leave Boise and we fly back home and return back to normal life. But they leave with this like new mission. Like they've both agreed on like, they're going to do some work together. And so Todd needed a little bit of help with like, hey, you started studying. Can you come in and like help me with like the HTML on these page templates? Can you like, there's a support email address and people are asking questions. Can you log in and like answer their questions for them? Or even at one point it was like, hey, we need someone to help process refunds and like manage the Stripe account and the billing and stuff. And so it led to just like, Todd needs something, say yes. Like Russell needs something, say yes.
Wow.
And that built up essentially my career over the first like 2 or 3 years of being 18 all the way to about the age of like 21 or 22, where I was like one of the first people to work at ClickFunnels. And literally just because I'm in proximity to Todd and Russell, like it took my life on a completely different trajectory. Because I'm pretty sure I was going to go like study computer science, play baseball, and I don't even know, maybe be an accountant or a CPA or an engineer or something like that. But yeah, completely different path.
Okay. And I want to pause here and then I want to know how you've transitioned to where you are now.
Okay.
But I love the visual. Like I'm going to put something up on my wall to remind myself of what you taught about how you were first in the room with Rusty, right? You guys, it's Russell Brunson. It's fine. Boise. It's good. Okay. But the thing that actually first blew your mind had nothing to do with the 40K. It was his excitement, right? And boy, he like never lost that, right? But he was
never
cargo shorts and excited.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is like, okay, like the offer to me was, hey, do you want to come out to this office and come intern? Yes. I'm like, okay, I get like the polos, I get the button downs, I get the slacks, I have some shoes, and I show up dressed to be in an office. And this dude, when I say flip-flops, like his flip-flops were at the front door and he was running around barefoot. And I was like, I don't have to be dressed like this, do I? That was my first, that is my first intro to internet marketing, is you get to show up however you want. That's the best. Wow.
I am so impressed by that. I love that was your introduction. And certainly it becomes it becomes sexier and it becomes more intriguing when you realize 40K was made on a random Tuesday with a $7 offer. And you are like, my life is about to change. Like something is happening here, right? I think that's really amazing. And I will never forget hearing Brandon Boucard speak about how you actually don't sell what you think you sell. Right. He's like, I don't care what you're doing. Like, you are not selling what you think you sell. And he says, you are selling aliveness. All of you here in this room, you are selling aliveness. And I am picturing 18. You're 18 at the time when you're
18 going on 19. Yeah.
Going on 19. And that is what got you started was aliveness. You saw barefoot. You saw show up how you want to show up. And you saw excitement. And then, wow, you saw 40K, right? That kind of aliveness.
Yeah, it honestly was confusing to me.
Tell me more.
Because you don't see that you don't see that anywhere else. Like, especially in court, like you don't see that in corporate.
No.
You don't see that in the education system. This really is like the only place, like selling online, showing up as an entrepreneur, even as a marketer, is like the only place where you get to be like jazzed about what you're doing. But it's also, it's like in an authentic way where you don't have to be like, put a smile on because I'm on Zoom. Like, this is fine. Like, blur my background and I just don't notice me. Like, you get to like bust in the room. You get to be the main thing and show up and serve and help and affect change. And that just doesn't really happen everywhere else. So it felt very strange to be in a room with someone like Russell. In fact, before I ever went out there, Todd had showed me a video. And this is funny. I made a Facebook post about this and everyone was like loved it. Todd showed me a video of Russell doing a VSL, video sales letter, for anyone who's not familiar with the acronym.
Yeah.
So Russell does this VSL. I don't remember what the offer was, but I distinctly remember him going through and saying like, and then it's going to do this, this, and this for your life. Does that sound cool? Okay. So what we're going to do, and then he continues on and I was like, why is he asking me questions?
Oh.
Why is he checking in with me? Like, is that all right? Okay, great. So, and what he's doing there is it's a NLP, like a psychological trigger called a trial close. And he's getting you to say like, is it okay if I do this? And you're like, yeah, it's okay if you do this and this. Sure, Russell. And you're nodding your head the whole time. And next thing you know, your head is just bobbing up and down, listening to Russell talk. And he's got you in the state of yes. I know that now. But as an 18-year-old, I watched that video and I was like getting back away. I was like, what is he doing? Why is he asking me that? What, like, I don't know. I'm telling you, it was the weirdest experience just learning all this stuff. But then you finally like, the Wizard of Oz opens up the curtain and shows you all the levers he's pulling, everything is like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I totally get like, and I in my head, I was answering him every single time. And then I was like, why am I doing that? Thus the fascination with the marketing side of the house, right? The marketing half of my brain is like, I got to figure out what this is because this is insane.
Yes, something special is happening here. And I love how you talk about saying yes to the screen because like, didn't we grow up? I mean, I'm older than you, but didn't we grow up like saying yes to Barney on the screen and saying yes to Sesame Street on the screen? I'm like, yeah, this is how we were taught from PBS as kids, right? And now Russell's marrying this amazing thing. Are you seeing it?
Oh no. Yeah. Oh my God.
It's like, no wonder all of a sudden we go to school and we're like, this isn't quite as fun as Barney and Sesame Street because we're not practicing these things like you were talking about. Just, yeah, great to think about our childhood. So bridge the gap for me a little bit about, okay, so I was 18, I was 19, and I spent a couple of years there doing kind of Todd's bidding and Russell's bidding as you were kind of finding your way. What has evolved since then? You obviously met your wife and those kinds of things, but what was life like as you grew through that company?
Yeah, I would say that what has grown? Me? That's so, no.
I mean,
obviously,
that's why you're here, dude. That's why you're here.
Yeah, I know, but like my are you sorry, really quick, are you asking like my involvement, like, or is there a way that you can rephrase this question?
Oh, 100%. So you work for Todd and Russell for a couple of years. As you turn 19, 20, you're kind of doing these projects for them. Between that time and now, what happened in your life to get you where you are now? What you're focused on?
Okay. Yeah.
Like I'm imagining
I would say
you being in college, getting this degree, like I get that you were intrigued by the ClickFunnels world and you felt connected that way in a familial way and with Russell and those things. But like, why didn't you do the corporate route? That's a more guaranteed 9 to 5, like make a lot more guaranteed, et cetera, like why? Why did you take the direction you did?
Okay. I went the direction I did because of the mission. And now I won't even say the culture. I think it's quite literally the mission. I actually, before I got involved with ClickFunnels, had this like innate or like natural like pressure inside of me or like will and want to be helpful. I think maybe because I always saw my father being helpful, or he like, there was nothing he couldn't fix. He owned every tool under the sun. And so I think I had this like want inside of me to be a helpful person. And I got to explore that a little more as I read like Simon Sinek's Start With Why. That's honestly something that I've explored in the last like year or so. It's like making the main thing, or like doing the really important work. It's like, okay, well, I can't do anything unless I put it through my lens of why. And so the last 10 years of me like working with Russell and Todd have been centered around like essentially my why before I really knew it was like my why. The mission here is like, we're unshackling entrepreneurs. Like you aren't held down by technology. You're not held down by location. You're not held down like nothing. You can make $1 million by forking over $97. Would you make, and it'll require a little bit of work from you, right? Like, have some skin in the game, put a little effort out there. But like what we've all built here over the last decade is actually insane. Like I think about this, like the size of opportunity and like what people can accomplish. I'm surrounded by 2 Comma Club awards, 2 Comma Club X awards, which is the $10 million award. And then the C awards, like those are around me all the time. And so I'm just like enamored with like, these are all people and companies and services and products that like the world needs, that people need. And this mission that we're on is like, get entrepreneurship out there to the people so they can go affect change.
Incredible.
And I want to tie it back to your question though, is like, what was the lot like? What changed for me? Like what has like from 19 to 20? I don't know why I'm getting so stuck up on this question, Sarah. I'm so sorry. I'll also say that like all along the way, there's essentially 2 facets here. It's like there's my career with ClickFunnels, but then there's also, I have an agency and I've had an agency for a little over 7 years now. I've always dabbled with my agency. And you've probably seen like in the last like 5 or 6 months or so is like I like flipped the gear forward on that so that I can personally affect more change in entrepreneurs' lives. But historically, it has been, I get introduced to people all the time. They almost always want help. So I don't know how that naturally gravitates towards me, but they almost always want help. And so I will jump in and just like help them with their sales funnels and like make sure that they look like rock stars and they can go out and like serve their audiences. I've done that historically for not a lot of money and not really put my name out there and just made sure that like people got helped and like, oh, it's just like, it's however much, it's like not a big deal. Just like wanting to be really, really helpful to them. And I always took the deals that just like fell in my lap. It's like I said, I never like put my name out there. I never like advertised. Some kind of recently started going to like networking groups and stuff. But even then they weren't ready for the like, oh, I likened it to this. So I would be in some networking groups and like, if it was a dealership lot, like the Ferrari drove onto the lot, but everyone else has like regular gas and like doesn't understand a stick shift or like whatever. And so like you have this hypercar, you've got somebody who can affect change on like such a huge scale, but no one understands what's sitting in front of them, right? The size of the opportunity that's sitting in front of them. So it was really tough to go into like free networking groups and being like, everyone's like, Jimmy's so smart. He's awesome. He knows so much. He's so helpful. But it was still broke as a joke, right?
Oh, wow.
Isn't that nuts?
Helpful but broke.
Yeah.
And I love that you actually brought up 2 very different experiences. You talked about your dad and you talked about my dad was just so helpful and that's so ingrained in you and that he had every tool possible in his tool belt, in his garage, wherever it was, right? So that when someone came calling, he could go and help and fix things and do all those things. Do you see a lot of yourselves in him? Do you see him in you is what I'm really asking.
Yeah. And I think, my dad's been a part of my life my entire life. And so I think that anyone who has like prolonged exposure, especially like a young male to his father, you'll end up aspiring to be like them in one way or another, unless they do a really awful job, in which case then you probably get pushed the opposite direction.
Sure.
No, he did great. He's a great father. And so I do see him in me a lot. In fact, my sister reminds me of that a lot. I'll say something and she goes, "You're just like dad." I'm like, well, duh. Okay. We even have the same name. He's junior and I'm the third. Oh, my son is the fourth,
Legacy. Yeah. I love it so much. And I want to understand what was going through your mind when you are surrounded by 2 Comma Club award winners, which is $1 million, right? 2 Comma Club X winners, which is 10 million plus bucks. And then we've got more and more and more, the millions of commas, right? Mm-hmm. But you are constantly surrounded by people who are getting paid and paid and paid and paid and helping. And so what was the big hurdle for you? Like what was happening where you couldn't match yourself up to pay according to your genius or to charge according to your genius? What was happening?
Ooh, Sarah.
Let's go.
There's probably a couple of things here, and I have thought about this. So it's not incredibly far-fetched for you to ask this. I will probably say I might have been waiting for permission, external validation from others to say like, if let's just throw out a number. Let's say that I worked on somebody's marketing funnel for $3,000.
Okay.
which is also, that's not nothing to bark at. It's $3,000. That's great. As somebody just like, you're working on this in your spare time. I never heard anyone else, and I never looked anywhere else in the marketplace at other people who were doing what I was doing and saw anything like bigger than that. So external validation, nor like any of my customers were like, this is amazing. I would have paid $25,000 for the same service, right? Like no one was saying that. And so I was like, okay, this is what the market is. And I'm just helping people in my spare time. So yeah, that's what it was.
You needed someone to go first that could prove to you people will pay this. And then you would have jumped on board.
Yeah. Or at least show me the evidence. Like I've also heard story. Like I knew that it existed, but it was like, it was for them. It wasn't for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Why?
I mean, it wasn't, I'm not the person in their shoes. I wasn't in the same room. I wasn't having the same conversations as them. I wasn't in proximity to the people, their like client base. There's probably other psychological reasons here, but I would say that just like, I didn't tell myself that I wanted it, because I told myself that like, this is the opportunity that's presented to you here and now. And that was for somebody else.
Amazing.
And that all changed. All that changed. And like, I've been able to like, dude, I think it was like $45,000 in the last like 3 months or so, which is pretty great because my agency has never done that like in years past. It was like people fell in my lap for like $2,000, $3,000 or $5,000 per project, like every month or every other month. Like I'd have to work an entire year, but there's people who have a different level of opportunity who can actually put the Ferrari in gear and drive it. Right. Like,
right.
I got connected with those kinds of people. And so, yeah,
well, and it shocks me because I think about how you felt like you weren't in proximity to the people that could do that for you. And I'm like, I'm trying to think of what better community would be chock full of people who would value that service than the one you were sitting in, Jimmy. Like, am I wrong that way? Or did you feel more like, yeah, go. I'm just going to let you talk.
I literally think in my head, at least the subconscious conversation was like, that's all for them. I'm just here to help. Like, that's all for them. Like, I'm not a part of it. Just kind of weird. Like I needed to be invited in if I was going to like attend the party. I couldn't just like walk in the door and like, so-and-so invited me. Like, no, I needed to be like, grab me and drag me into the situation. And I actually think that like, I kind of hit a boiling point where I was like, nothing, like it's been 6 years-ish, 7 years. Like nothing's changed. When's it going to change? I thought it was supposed to grow. Like, isn't this supposed to grow? No, not unless you grow it.
Not unless you grow it. Like you're so right that it doesn't just happen. Right? It doesn't just happen that success loves speed, success loves effort, right? And all this stuff. So I want to actually connect what is going to feel really random for a hot second. So just go with me for a minute. And you mentioned a lot about, okay, I've gained inspiration from the Bible about, who I want to be and the natural man. And I hope to be this kind of father. And I had a good I've got a good father that's paved a good path for me. I really am inspired by helping people, right? I really am inspired by that. And that drives me and all that kind of stuff. And you and I together have entered a world that is insanity in the sense of what people charge and the results that charging that much produces for people. Right? Like always a little scary to be like, am I actually going to produce for this person? But we have been introduced or in the rooms with those kinds of experiences where it's like, oh my gosh, there are like 5 and 6 figure deals happening for your skill set and my skill set every single hour of every single day. And I was blind, right? I was absolutely blind. And maybe you weren't blind because you were seeing awards, but like trying to really connect the dots that way. But the way I want to go full circle with this is what is your feeling about how God feels about you making money? Is that in conflict for you?
No, it's not conflict. God is master of all. So why would he feel conflicted about like, he already owns it. It's his tool. God cares about what I think about money. Like if it's where my heart is, if it's where my treasure is, that's where my heart lies also.
Right.
And God wants my heart. So if he's my treasure, if like his fruits and my, right relationship is with him, like that's the main thing. Well, what does that mean when it comes to like making money? Well, I put so much emphasis on like money is just like how we measure value and energy and production.
Yeah.
it's my belief that when it comes to God and money, that you should want him so much more. You should rely on him so much more. I actually got to experience that recently with the circle that we're in now. It's like the money that I put forward to go join and be a part of like a big group and like a mastermind and all that. We went like flirting with zeros in the bank account for like 45, 50-ish days. And we were like pulling out the rice and beans, because that's like,
yes,
in the, like when you save all those non-perishables for a rainy day, like it was our rainy day, like this was the time. But like I knew before I put that money forward, before I like did anything, I knew that like, okay, God, we're going to go through this together. Like you have me, right? So it didn't matter what happened after that. I knew that God had me. So I can take his tool and his instrument of money and put it in the places where it needs to go, so that I can go out and do more, be more, affect more change, help more people. And my family was going to be fine. My family was going to be taken care of.
Did you ask for God's permission or blessing? Or did you just say, I'm doing this, help me do it?
Ooh, I might have pulled the trigger, but with faith. I also there's a part of me that like knew that like this was the way forward, like a piece that this was the way forward.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't ask for his permission.
And you don't feel bad about that?
No, but there was a point where I had a lot of, oh my gosh, some of the prayer that I had during that point where it was like having to be in reliance on God. He's not crazy. I'm not saying that God is crazy, but it is crazy that like he wants me and that he's for me. I remember being like face down on the floor, just like trying to pray through it and everything. And like him saying like, that he's going to provide, he's going to be there the entire time. And I was like, but why? Like, why me? Like, what have I done for you? Like, what, like, I'm not worthy. And it was the second that like, I'm not worthy came out of my mouth that and when I pray, I'm a very visual person. So God will show me like signs of things or like symbols of things so like providence, like there was a symbol had given me like I'm God, I will provide. Right.
Wow. And
it was the moment that I said like, why me? I'm not worthy of this. That like a flashbang went off inside of my eyelids and everything went white, but it was like a white hot cross like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you said, I'm going, like I'm doing it.
Yeah. It's like, I think from my interpretation and understanding there, it's like the message is like, you're not worthy, but my son is.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway today. That's really powerful. And I also really love, like I learned something about God today from you that that we are also diverse. You are, I am, you and I share many foundations of faith together, but we don't go to the same building necessarily, right? But I love that you're sharing that we are so diverse. And so of course, God is going to be diverse in how he talks to us and in how he gives you at least the little flick, the nudge that you need to pay the dang bill for the mastermind we're both in. Right? Like, I see it so beautifully when I joined about a year before you, I think. And in a very similar space, it was the first time ever in my business that I put money down on a credit card that I had no idea. Like I am 42 years old right now, and I have never held a credit card balance in my whole life. Right?
Well,
never. And that was the first time. That was the very, very first time. And so
you don't know how you're hitting it next month, right?
No, like no idea, right?
That's exactly where I was at. I was on the phone with Amex, like, I don't have the money. I don't know when I'm going to be able to pay you. They're like, you don't know when you're going to be able to pay me? By the way, I'm like an 8-year-long Amex holder. By the way, my history, like just like the history on this one card alone, like I'm like a 780 credit score. It's insane. And yeah, I'm on the phone with him and he's like, what do you mean you don't know how you're going to pay? I was like, dude, I paid a guy, like, and I paid a guy. I'm learning a thing and I don't know when I'm going to get paid on this next, but I know it's going to cover the bill. Like it's going to cover everything. Like, actually, you know, what's funny? The very first bill that came, like the very first payment, like the contract amount that came through was all of my debt. And the cash collected was the bill amount. Like,
no, your life is so symbolic.
I'm telling you, do you believe that God is for you? Like,
I just love that it's so obvious, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you feel like you have to kind of hunt and like, where is God in my life? And you're kind of like, here. Oh yeah, here. Like you're seeing it.
Like, what else is more important?
Were you religious as a kid? Like, as I think of that teenager, and I think of even that husband of drinking and partying and friends and video games. I'm a Halo player, by the way. I brought my Xbox to the marriage. I don't play anymore, but like, I get the video game thing, right?
That's so cool.
Right. I think that's why Craig married me. He's like, oh, that's kind of rad. I'm going to marry a Halo girl. But
yeah,
like, I get it. But what was that like for you? You and God, age 18, 20, 16. What was it like?
I'm not going to say you're going to love this, but it will be.
I will love it.
I know. It will be ironic.
Okay.
So I grew up in church until about the age of 12.
Like Christian?
Yeah.
Christian. Okay, great.
I will say that, like, for the most part, I understood what I was saying and what I was agreeing to and singing songs about and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then around the age of 12, we stopped going to church. And I don't know why. I also know that this is like, we're like a couple years off of like 2008 and that financial crisis. So I don't think that they align really, but like they could. I'm just not sure.
Okay.
But I stopped going to church probably around age 11 and it just like fizzled out. So did my faith and my belief, whatever was actually there. I actually don't remember being like having fervor for it or anything. But yeah, it was probably about the age of like 14, 15 ish that I said, I don't believe in it. I don't care. I don't want it. So I would like publicly renounce that like God's not real, that it's fake. It's just like a way to control people, blah, 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 whatever else. One of my deepest regrets in my entire life. And if I ever got the opportunity to go back in time, I would shake 16-year-old me and like get your SHIT together.
Good job,
Told you I wouldn't curse. But my for Easter, my mother gifted me a Bible and I handed it back to her.
That was gutsy.
Well, that's like the level of like anger that was inside of me at that point where it's like, God's not real. This is all fake. Not like it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Blah, blah, whatever else. Right. So yeah, I handed it back to her and she's, obviously saddened by this. My mom, no one has more faith than my mom. Like she's gone through it and still believed. So yeah, I can't even imagine like you believe and like love God that much. And then your 16-year-old son like hands the Bible back to you and says he doesn't want it.
And she didn't chew you out. She didn't ground you. She didn't like.
No, she stuck it in my closet and said, well, you're going to keep this. I don't have that Bible anymore. I wish I did. I don't know what happened to it. But after that, it's like in high school, I would like start debates with all, like any of the FCA kids and like, all right, God's three people and one person. Like, tell me that. And they're like, oh, it's this and this. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like just like pick fights at them and like start debates and stuff. And then I go to college and still don't really believe, but it's my sister is like going to church and she's like, you have to come for Christmas. It's Christmas. Come be with your family. And in my family, it's like we're not words of affirmation. We're not physical touch. We're not like whatever else. But as long as you're in proximity with one another, we're checking some boxes here, right? So just like shut up and go sit on the couch over there and you are good for Christmas, right?
Okay.
So the proximity thing is like, okay, the whole family's going to church and you don't want to go, sucks. You're going. And I was like, okay, fine. And that's pretty much like to about the age of 21-ish. And there were so many things in life that were just starting to pile on. It was like, like work this and like this girlfriend I thought I was going to marry. It's like, I don't love you anymore. And she split. And I was like, I don't want to be around anymore. I don't want this. Whatever this is, I'm out. I'm done. I hit my boiling point.
Yeah.
And it was that same night that like I had drank too much and was just done. I was done.
Yeah.
And I ran down the house I was at. I ran down the driveway. I ran down to the street and I'm just like, I'm crying. I didn't know what was next. I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And I was just so mad. I was like punching the asphalt. And actually now that I think about this, I'm like, why did like people who had demons, like, why would they like self-injure? It's like, I'm that mad, that tormented by this. It's like, I don't know if I had a demon at that point. Probably, maybe. Yeah. But like, I was like punching the asphalt. I was so mad. And I look up in the sky. And I'm like, God, if you're real, you have to do something now. So my understanding of that moment was that he sent my family down after me. And my family came and like gathered me. My friend was also at that house. So he sent my friend, like, you have friends and you have family and they have come to you. Right.
Like, I'm here with the people around you. Oh my God.
Yeah. I think that he does a lot of work through people. I think that's his favorite tool and his favorite instrument. And he sent them to me. I didn't know it at this time, but like they didn't know that I was like split off, run down the hill. And so
But they didn't witness this and say, oh my gosh, we got to go help him. It was like you had gone out there, you're punching the asphalt, you're like bargaining with God. You're like, it's kind of now or never, God, like now or never. And they felt something or rallied and they came to you.
And I fell asleep and woke up the next day and seemingly nothing had really changed. And, nothing really changed probably for like another few months. And it was like, as I had gone to church with a family, because something was happening, right? Jimmy, you have to be at church. Your whole family's there. I don't even remember what it was. Not really sure.
Okay.
But I sat in the room and all of a sudden it was like, oh, I can't be in this room. Like the message, like the sermon and the words, like made it so unbearably uncomfortable that like tightness in my chest and like I have to get out. So I went and sat in the restroom for 40 minutes.
At church?
At church, yeah. And then I met up with everyone afterwards and we all went out to lunch and I went home back on my way. The next rhyme or reason why I need to go to church, I go and I'm like, I can't be in this room. I couldn't be. This is the first time I can't be in the same room where God's spirit is. Well, what's inside of me? Like
you asked yourself that?
No, this is what I realized. This is what I realized like later on down the line. I've thought about this a lot. What is inside of me? Like sin, rebellion, anger, hate, all those things. What's flooding the room in the presence of all these believers? God's spirit. And yeah, there was like one or two more times where I was like, I can't be here. I left, went and sat in the restroom, did it, 3 or 4 times. It was like the 5th-ish time that like I'm sitting there and like at this point it's like I know the songs, I'm bopping my head. I grew up playing music. I'm a drummer. I play anything that I don't have to put my mouth on. So like no trombones or trumpets or whatever. But like if it's a guitar, I can play the guitar. I play the drums. Yeah. And so I love music. And so I'm like the band's playing, I'm like bopping my head along. And then this song comes on and I'm going to actually tilt my camera for this because the body position is actually really important. So I'm sitting here, I'm like bopping my head, tapping my foot. Yeah. And all of a sudden my body goes, like my arms start unfolding and it's like conscious, but it's like not entirely conscious. And my arms start unfolding. And the next thing I know is like my hands go like this. And I'm telling you, it felt like water, like down my body because this changed to this. Like it's the craziest thing. And it was pretty much at that moment where I was like open to God again.
Like physically open, your posture.
Basically, yeah. My posture. My posture was like open to God. So I'd gone to church a handful more times. And then all of a sudden it was like time to get baptized. Cause I was like, I want him. So I got baptized with my sister and my eldest sister baptized me and my little sister.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So sacred.
Yeah.
I think it's so appropriate that you are a coder and like a visual and like a piece together kind of person, because as I look at my really fabulous notes about our conversation today, there are just these anchor experiences for you, right? Some of them are really ugly and some of them are really beautiful, right? But these I'm like literally feeling my hands hurt as you are talking about punching the asphalt. And my heart sank when I thought about you being handed that Bible and you're like, I don't want it. Right? Like
just sing for my mom, my poor mom,
Yeah. And I just love that there are just these very visual moments, right? All the way from meeting Rusty, right? All the way down through your childhood and all those things. And how do I want to ask this? You thought God was a lie for years and years as a teenager, right?
Yeah. Just about a decade almost.
A decade.
No. Yeah. Probably like eight years. Yeah.
Okay. That's a really long time. And so you have this period of your life where, born till you're about 11 years old. Man, I have a son that's 11. So I'm like thinking about you, like an 11-year-old boy. You decide you go through about that 8-year period of without. And then now you've sort of been reintroduced to God and a savior in your life. What have you learned about him? How is he different than you thought he was from when you were a child and learned about God versus when you re-met him and accepted him and opened your life to him? How do you think he is different than we believe he is?
Man, it's so weird. The reason why I was like, I'm not even really sure what I believed when I was a kid is because my understanding of him now, maybe there's a maturity aspect to it where it's like, what can you understand? Like I think it's maybe because I know what valleys and shadows are like, that now I can really appreciate the peaks that could enhance my understanding of God now. But I won't say that like for everybody that everyone needs to understand what it's like to go through lows to appreciate the highs. But as a kid, I think to me, God was like the place you went to. It was the songs you sang, and it was the people that you saw every Sunday. Or sometimes you'd go to vacation Bible school and you'd go there and you'd sing songs and eat food, and then you'd go, are you checking boxes?
You're checking boxes, right?
Yeah.
Is that what God felt like to you? Okay.
Yeah. Because I don't think that at that age I had a personal relationship with God or with Jesus. I had prayed before, but I definitely didn't have what I have now. Or you know what? I don't know how that works. I'll say that.
Sure.
It didn't feel like because there's not a different Holy Spirit for children than there is for adults. I believe that. It felt, what I have now feels different from what I had when I was a kid. Let's put it that way.
And he is someone that is present in the day to day, not just during the lows.
Yeah. Yeah. Now he's here with us now.
Yeah.
I don't know how God works with electricity. I'm not going to pretend like I understand him in his intricacies, but we're two believers and we're gathered. And hopefully whoever listens to this is like turned on to the idea that like, hey, this guy absolutely royally screwed it up and maybe there's hope for me too, And
man, that is a conversation for like part 2. I hope you'll come back. A conversation for part 2 on, do we hide mistakes or do we allow them to actually qualify us that maybe we're savable, right? Like that's a conversation that we need to talk about. Round 2, Jimmy. Round 2. I love it. I love it so much. Well, I am absolutely filled, right? I would call that God's Spirit. I am just absolutely filled and inspired. The title of the podcast is Unreasonable Autonomy, right? How do we go after things that many would say are unreasonable in our life? And while we can sit here and talk about, your successes with being able to charge more and influence and being driven by help, I think the thing that you have really, really forced here, like in a beautiful way, is the fact that God is not afraid of us being unreasonable in our own way, being a jerk and being cold and being non-present and being like he himself is unafraid of that, right? And will be there in those moments. He doesn't abandon us in those moments. He waits and he reaches. I am so grateful for your willingness to share your experiences. Like selfishly, I just feel so lifted. Thank you.
Oh, good.
So lifted.
Yeah.
For those of you who are listening, I need all of you to DM Jimmy and tell him he needs to come back for round 2. So everybody get out there and bug him and blow up his phone.
Sarah, you got me. Don't even worry. You tell me when. I'll jump.
There's more.
I'll hop, skip, and jump when you say go.
Bless you. Well, congratulations on a new baby coming on the way. Congratulations both to you and your wife. I want her to come on next time too. I want to say hi to her.
Do you want to do that? That'll be a hoot.
Like I would love to have her here.
Okay.
Like, can we just plan on it?
Yep.
Okay,
I'm going to spousally commit her to hanging out with you.
I get it. And she gets the final say. I can respect that fully. But I always love to see the partnership because I think that's what makes it roll with the lives that we're pursuing. So thank you again to the Jimmy Allen. I am so grateful for you, for your friendship, for your commitment to fatherhood, for your respect for your family, for your view and experiences and ups and downs about God. I am just so grateful for you. So thank you again so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Unreasonable Autonomy podcast. If you loved this episode, my guests and I would love to hear about it. Go to the show notes to reach out and let me know what resonated with you or what topics or guests you want to hear in the future. I am here to create for you. Look, I deeply admire your commitment to pushing boundaries and going after an unreasonable life. Keep dreaming big, taking bold steps, and expecting the unreasonable. For more, go to the show notes to dive deeper into the conversations that will keep you going. Thanks for being here.